Hello and welcome to Buffy and the Art of Story. If you love the Buffyverse and you love creating stories or just taking them apart to see how they work, you're in the right place. Today we're talking about Season 1, Episode 14 of Angel, I've Got You Under My Skin, where the Angel Investigations team tries everything, including an exorcism, to help a family plagued by an ancient demon. I am Lisa M. Lilly, author of the Awakening Supernatural thriller series, the QC Davis Mysteries, and the Writing as a Second Career books for writers. You can find all of those and back episodes of Buffy and the Art of Story, including those that cover Buffy the Vampire Slayer from seasons 1 through 7 at lisalilly.com. That's lisalilly.com. Along with a recap of I've Got You Under My Skin, I'll talk about character growth for Angel and Cordelia and their relationship, how this episode expands some of our understanding of the Buffyverse, a false climax, deepening relationships between our key characters, themes of what having a soul means, kindness, emotional intelligence, and more, and my rating of the episode on a scale of 0 to 10. As always, there will be no spoilers for Angel, but I will talk about all of Buffy the Vampire Slayer from time to time, so if you haven't watched that complete series, proceed with caution. Okay, let's dive into the Hellmouth, or maybe just Los Angeles. I've Got You Under My Skin aired the first time on February 15, 2000. It was written by Janine Renshaw and David Greenwald and directed by R.D. Price. On streaming, the episode begins with a previously on section. Wesley says he's a fraud and the council was right to sack him. And we see a few scenes from Somnambulist where Kate says she trusts Angel, but then sees him fighting as a vampire, and he tells her there are things she's not ready to face. The episode itself starts with some minor conflict that is really fun in Angel's kitchen. Wesley is showing off an antique knife he acquired. It is the only thing that can kill a Keck demon. It might be very useful. Angel says, especially if Keck demons weren't extinct. Wesley is disappointed to learn that and says, well, maybe one's out there hibernating, getting ready for a grisly rampage at any moment. Angel will keep his fingers crossed for that. Cordelia comes in. She has had brownies baking in the oven. It's a recipe handed down from her mother, who got it from her housekeeper, and Cordelia improvised a little. The brownies are quite solid, I guess you would say, and she has trouble cutting with them until she takes Wesley's knife. He is not happy. It is a knife for killing extinct demons. The two bicker. Angel tries to intervene a couple times. They keep going, and he says, Cordelia, Doyle. There is this heavy silence. He corrects himself, says Wesley, and then says, no more fighting, all right? The scene cuts to a suburban house. A little boy, we'll find out, is Ryan, and his sister, Stephanie, fight over some cards. Ryan thinks Stephanie got more. The mother intervenes and tells them it's time for bed anyway. They don't want to go to bed, and the father comes in and says very firmly, it's time for bed. And ominous music plays and a close-up on his face. So we are strongly hinted that Dad is a bit scary. After the kids are in bed, the parents stand outside Stephanie's room, and the mom says, do we have to? The father locks the door from the outside with a heavy padlock, and there is one already on Ryan's door. And we go to credits. Cordelia stays late at Angel Investigations to talk to Angel. She walks in as he is brooding in front of a book in his office and says, pretend to read any good books lately? She comments on Angel calling Wesley Doyle. Angel thinks maybe he should talk to Wesley about it, but Cordelia doesn't care about Wesley. she tells Angel that he never says Doyle's name and that he doesn't have to be Joe Stoic. She knows he has this unflappable vibe, but he doesn't need to do that for her. That showed their growing and deepening relationship. Cordelia is really someone that Angel can be who he is with, and she is emphasizing that. He doesn't have to put up a good front. He tells her he's not unflappable, and Cordelia says something like, "Great, so flap." And Angel says he misses Doyle. Cordelia misses him too. Angel starts talking about how Doyle died and that Angel shouldn't have let it happen. Cordelia tells him it hurts. He thinks she means emotionally, but she says, really, she is having a vision. And here's where we get the story spark about 6 minutes in, although we had a very strong hint of it when we saw those parents locking their kids, or the father locking the kids into their room. And that's why this beginning does not feel slow, because we have that scene early on. We know Angel is going to cross paths with these people. In addition, there is such emotional depth with Cordelia and Angel talking about Doyle that the episode feels like it's moving along fairly quickly. In her vision, Cordelia sees the family that we saw earlier and the house number. Angel and Wesley pull up in the convertible at night. Ryan in pajamas walks out into the street. A car's coming. Angel races out and saves him. Angel's shoulder is injured in the process, and the boy notices he's bleeding. Angel jokes with him about it, about whether he's going to cry. A small callback to the unflappable conversation with Cordelia earlier. The father, Seth, races out of the house and he berates Ryan for leaving his room and tells him to get back inside. He's very angry. One aspect of this really doesn't work. I don't think it was intentional, but he reveals in a moment when his wife comes out that he saw what happened, but it took him a while to get out there. Angel had this whole conversation with Ryan. One of those things we just have to kind of ignore because we wanted those moments of Angel connecting. The mom, Paige, is so grateful. She's hugging Ryan. She's tearful. She's thanking Angel. But Dad just wants to get everyone inside. He's very curt. Paige notices that Angel is bleeding and insists he come inside, where she cleans the wound and gets some bandages. She confides in him that they just moved in, everything is still jumbled, and it doesn't get easier with each new place, so now we know they move a lot. She also comments on how hard it is to make new friends and not having anyone to talk to. She's very emotional. Seth comes in and says Ryan is asleep. Angel asks how the boy got out, and they tell him he must have climbed out the window. They have burglar bars and didn't realize Ryan could fit through. Seth is taken aback when Angel asks where he thinks Ryan was going. Seth doesn't think he was going anywhere, and Angel says, well, was he running away from something or getting away from something? And Seth asks, what would Ryan have to get away from in his own house? The scene cuts to Wesley, who is poking through the trash. He's just a little nervous because this doll that was tossed out, he pokes it, it starts to cry, and it really scares Wesley. He drops his flashlight, but this leads to him seeing on the lower part of the fence this glowing greenish goo. Inside, Seth lights a cigarette, asks if it bothers Angel. You know, there's all these health nuts. Like anyone needs to live forever, and Angel says in a very understated way, no one needs that. Paige comes in, tells him they lived in Akron before, and she's so thrilled when Angel tells him his name, Angel, and then he adds Jones at the last minute. She shows him her angel figurines. She collects them and thinks that angels are watching over them all the time. Seth is practically rolling his eyes at his wife's beliefs, and then Seth tries to hurry Angel out. But Paige has invited Angel to come to dinner the next night. She really wants to thank him, and he accepts immediately. It is a great way for him to spend more time with this family. We're about 13 minutes in, and outside in the car, Wesley tells Angel that when he goes back, he needs to be very careful. He shows him this green goo in a test tube and says, someone in the house is possessed by a demon. This serves as that first major plot turn. It comes from outside Angel, our protagonist, and spins the story in a new direction that there is definitely a demon possession going on. Before that, we saw a lot of tension between Seth and Angel, Seth and his family, and while that still might relate to him, could have been any number of other things going on. Now we know it's a demon. At the office, Cordelia makes some calls, reminding me that we are in a time when it wasn't so easy to look up online and see where a person had lived. She has found out, though, not just about Akron, but earlier places that the family lived. And a friend of the family went missing when they were in Akron. There were animal deaths at each place and unexplained accidents. Wesley tells them that green goo, which is called something like plasticine, is from an ethros demon, and those demons tend to go in for mass murder. He tells Cordelia, remember Lizzie Borden, who killed her whole family with an axe? Cordelia remembers the child's rhyme about it and then comments on why children's stories and rhymes have so much death in them. Wesley raised the story because not many people know Lizzie Borden was possessed by an ethros demon. The team agrees they need to evict it from whoever it is possessing, meaning to do an exorcism. Wesley will try to find a priest, though most of them don't really go in for that anymore. Cordelia asks which one in the family is possessed, and Angel comments that the kids are afraid of their father. Wesley says a father doesn't have to be possessed to terrorize his children. He just has to. We'll find out soon enough. They talk about how to get the demon to reveal itself. There is some eucalyptus powder that will work. And the next night, Angel shows up at the door with brownies, presumably Cordelia's recipe based on the way the family reacts to them, but we know they have the powder in them. At dinner, Angel sticks up for Paige when Seth says the roast was a little dry. Angel says, no, it was great. It was very roasty. He bonds with the kids over not liking Brussels sprouts, and Seth returns from the kitchen when they're all laughing. Stephanie tells her dad that Angel is funny, and Seth says he hides it well. The brownies come out. Angel is watching Seth carefully, and Seth does start to choke after biting the brownie, but Stephanie screams, and Angel turns, and Ryan is spasming. A demon mouth is appearing. His head is practically spinning around, and we go to commercial. This is about 15 minutes in. This is a serious escalation from that first plot turn, and you could see it as the plot turn in itself. However you see it, we had a very strong turn a little after a quarter way through, and now a couple minutes later have really upped the stakes. It seems so much worse that the demon is in this little boy. Not that it'd be great if it was in the father, but having a child at risk always raises the stakes more. Once the convulsions or spasming stops, Paige hugs her child. She's so disturbed, of course, and Angel tells her son is possessed by a demon. Stephanie chimes in that Ryan's always been bad. Paige, though, is angry, especially when Angel says he had to get the demon to reveal itself, so he used powder in the brownies. She sees it as poisoning her son. But now Seth is on Angel's side because they've known something is very wrong with Ryan. He points that out to Paige, and he says they have been struggling. The last 3 years have been awful, and now it turns out there might be help, and he wants to know what Angel needs him to do. This switch between the parents feels authentic to me because these two people react differently to the different kinds of stress. One kind of stress is you are fearful of and for your child. You know that he's doing these terrible things. You're trying to find a way to help him and want to believe that he is a good kid and don't know what to do. And for Seth, I think that is harder than knowing, okay, even though it's awful that his son is possessed, there might be help. Where for Paige, it feels like a confirmation of something is horribly, horribly wrong with her son, which she did not want to believe. She is not relieved that her son is possessed. And I'm not sure she quite believes it, or she is just in denial, which is interesting because she's the one who believes in angels, but has a harder time accepting the idea of a demon. And that feels authentic to me as well, because people are complicated and we can have contradictory ideas in our heads. Angel calls Wesley and tells him he's bringing the family there, but Wesley is not ready. He hasn't been able to find the one priest, Father Frederick, who does these types of exorcisms. Angel tells him to put together a binding powder to confine Ryan in Angel's apartment until they are ready to have the exorcism done. Seth talks about how it has taken all he has to hold the family together. At Angel's apartment, they put Ryan, who went unconscious after the demon was revealed, into Angel's bedroom. Cordelia, very bright and cheery, says to the parents, "Hi, I'm Cordelia. Sorry about the possession and everything." Cordelia really does have the best lines in the episode. Wesley explains about the binding powder. It will keep Ryan and the demon confined while he and Angel go find the priest. Paige doesn't think he needs a priest. Angel reinforces what he told them before about the demon and warns them not to go near Ryan or touch him. He'll kill them if he gets a chance. He's so adamant, and Cordelia finally tells him they've got it. Circle, angry, kill, 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 go to church already. The church is dimly lit. It has sort of soaring Gothic architecture and a lot of lit candles, very old school vampire type of imagery. And Angel looks a little nervous as he sees the crucifix up at the front. They interrupt an aging nun who is praying in the pews, and she scolds Angel for coming into a place of worship. She clearly knows what he is. He tells her he is trying to help a child possessed by an ethos demon. They ask her about Father Frederick and learn that he is dead. We're right around the midpoint of the episode, and this is a reversal, which we often see at that point, and it becomes even stronger when the nun explains that Father Frederick died while doing an exorcism of a young woman possessed by a demon. She tells them that if the child they're trying to help is possessed by an ethos, her prayers are with them, both of them. So she includes Angel in that when she was quite wary of him before. She says that demon is smart and powerful and even more dangerous than Angel. At the apartment, Ryan calls out to Paige. He wants his mommy. He's scared. He's cold. Paige wants to just go take him his toys. Seth tells her to wait. And she argues things were going well this time, but Cordelia asks her what happened in Akron, Ohio when they lived there. Seth explains that their friend died in a fire. Paige insists it was an accident, not Ryan. Seth tells her that's not Ryan in the bedroom either, and she tearfully says she'll play by the rules, clearly not happy about it. Cordelia encourages them, says they can play cards, watch TV. She won't even hear her son's pain. At the church, Angel and Wesley argue. Wesley plans to do the exorcism, but Angel says it takes a lot of mental strength. Wesley doesn't even have sales resistance, and he asks him how many Thigh Masters he owns. Wesley's a bit offended that Angel doesn't think he can do it, but Angel points out that Father Frederick was an expert and he died. Wesley says, fine, then there's only one other option, and he tosses a cross to Angel, who drops it when it burns him. Angel says fine, but he'll be with Wesley the whole time. Paige, meanwhile, stands on the threshold of the bedroom telling Ryan she's right there. He looks awful. His face has boils on it. It's cut. It looks mottled. The other times I watched this episode, it spooked me so much seeing him that way. Not as much when I am breaking it down for the podcast, thankfully. I grew up learning about religion and Catholicism, and while the Catholic Church doesn't spend a lot of time emphasizing Satan and demons, it was definitely part of the lore that you learned. When you're baptized, your godparents reject Satan and all his works for you. I'm pretty sure you have to say it again when you're confirmed. The devil, Satan, is seen as a very real figure. And then, of course, we have all the horror movies that trade in that. And when I was maybe 12, I read The Exorcist, and it scared me so much. I thought it was a great book. I have never reread it, but I thought it was really good. Never went to the movie, did not want to see it, but it really scared me, especially the use of the Ouija board. I had one and I buried it in a side room under a bunch of things and never took it out again that I can remember. Probably was a little too young to read that. There was a comment on Instagram about the episode She from Giles Library, and I love that username. Love all things Giles. Giles Library says, "You certainly touch on the subject, but in my opinion, this episode is a metaphor for female genital mutilation." And I agree. I probably should have gone into that a bit more. That is the key metaphor in She. It would take a whole other episode for me to sort through how that interplays with the other themes of the episode, partly because we had that storyline where these young women, when they come through, were killing men. And the thing is, I don't know how you create the story in a different way that still brings Angel into the picture. You need some danger to the people that Angel considers his own in order for it to matter to him. I don't know what would bring him into the story if we didn't have that, and that aspect of the story where these women reach their, maturity, their sexual power, and it is actually a danger. I went down the rabbit hole of that and lost the thread a bit on the FMG aspect of the story. So thank you, Giles Library, for pointing that out. Most likely was the writer's intent to write a story addressing that. Separately, a reminder that I am working on the next Buffy and the Art of Story book. If you want to find the previous books, which cover seasons 1 through 3, you can find those at lisalilly.com/BuffyBooks. And I would love to hear from you about what types of additional content or bonus content you would like to see if I were to not only publish the next Buffy book, which would be season 4, part 1, but put it out through a Kickstarter where I could offer extra items for people who were interested in them. So if there is anything you'd especially like to hear about for season 4, whether you'd want an extra chapter of the book or some sort of audio content or a discussion of a certain character, I would love to hear about that. You can comment on YouTube on the Buffy and the Art of Story Facebook page, or message me on Patreon or at buffystorypod@gmail.com. In a very little boy voice, Ryan tells his mom that he can't see. There's something wrong with his eyes. Why won't she help? But then there's growling, and it looks like he's having a seizure. Paige tries to run to him Seth and Cordelia hold her back. Wesley and Angel get to the office. Wesley is reading a book as he walks, and he figures out how Father Frederick died. When an Ethros demon is cast out, it seeks the nearest warm body, but it is so powerful and there's so much energy that the new host rarely survives. They start heading down the stairs. Cordelia and Seth hear them, and Seth is so relieved he lets down his guard and lets go of Paige. She runs to Ryan. The demon telekinetically slams the doors shut, locking the others out, and tries to strangle Paige. Seth finally gets into the bedroom, but he can't stop Ryan, who is just too strong. Wesley and Angel finally get there. They're able to pull Paige away. Wesley holds a cross up toward the demon, starts chanting in Latin. The demon goes deeper into Ryan, who slumps unconscious. After warning Paige again to do everything Angel tells her to do, he and Wesley get ready. Wesley is putting binding powder right around the bed. Cordelia is researching, and she tells Angel about an Ethros box that can hold the demon once it's expelled. They wonder if they could build it, but no, the book says it's made of 600 species of virgin woods, handcrafted by blind Tibetan monks. Cordelia doesn't think they know any of those. Angel gives her the address of a magic shop on Melrose Street. In the bedroom, Wesley chants Latin at the demon, who tells him his Latin sucks. Wesley throws holy water on it, scalding it, says he knows the demon's tricks. He won't be deterred from doing what needs to be done, and the demon taunts him as if Wesley could do anything. He couldn't even watch. Everyone knows he got fired from the council, and the demon adds, "Nothing's going to make him proud of you." Possibly a reference to Wesley's father, maybe to Angel. We know how much Wesley was Angel's approval. Wesley tells the demon it's just a parlor trick, skimming the surface of Wesley's mind. He holds up the cross, ready to chant again, but now in Wesley's own voice. The demon says something about all those hours locked up under the stairs, and he still wasn't good enough for Daddy or the council. Wesley falters. He loses his place in the book with the ritual in it. The demon taunts him, says, "What makes Wesley think anyone wants him there?" Angel comes in then and says because he invited Wesley. Now the demon tells Angel he's even stupider than Wesley if he trusts Wesley. And he says Wesley plans to kill Angel. Wesley denies it. The demon says Wesley's more afraid of Angel than the demon. Wesley is provoked. He says, "I'll show you fear," lunges forward with the cross, and in doing so steps into that binding power. The demon grabs the cross, stabs Wesley with it, and shoves him away. Angel goes to help his friend. The scene cuts to Cordelia in the magic shop. The proprietor says, "Blessed be." Cordelia responds, I need an Ethros box." The proprietor compliments her for being a woman who knows what she wants, and Cordelia, I love this, just says, "Yes, I'm great. Just pop it in a bag." But it turns out the shop does not have one. He's got a box for a Shorshak demon, not made by blind Tibetan monks, but by mute Chinese nuns. Cordelia asks if it will work for an Ethros. The proprietor is not sure. A Shorshak demon is a little shorter than the average Ethros. Cordelia muses, well, how big could the demon be? It's in a little boy right now, and she takes it. The proprietor goes on schmoozing her about how she made such a wise choice, and does she want it gift wrapped? At the apartment, Angel and Wesley argue about Wesley going back in. The whole apartment starts shaking, and marbles on the table, which were there with Ryan's toys, form into the words, "Save me." And Wesley says they don't have a choice. This is right around the time we would typically see the last major plot turn. It should grow from that midpoint reversal, and here it does. The priest was dead, which led Wesley to decide to do the exorcism. And now there is a turn because of the save me and what happens as a result, which is that Doyle's voice now comes from Ryan, and he says, the good fight, yeah? What Doyle said before he sacrificed himself. The demon laughs and tells Angel that Doyle's been talking to him and he wants to know why Angel couldn't protect him. So this is really the turn. Angel grabs a cloth to shield his hand and takes the cross into the bedroom. The demon goes on taunting Angel that he let Doyle die, just like he's going to let Ryan die. And then the demon starts talking to Seth and says, "Aren't you, Daddy?" Seth is troubled by so many things, including that Angel's hand is smoking a little where it is too near the cross. And the demon says, "Two great protectors." Now it seems like we are at the climax where our opposing forces have their final confrontation. Ethros, the antagonist, keeps taunting Angel. Angel warns Seth to get back. He presses the cross to Ryan's chest and chants in Latin. Wesley translates some of it as he does, and the first two lines are, "Do you renounce Satan and all his works?" Ryan convulses. Angel's hand smokes. His voice gets louder. He goes into vamp face and says, "Now get the hell out." Bright light comes out of Ryan, shoots into the box, and the box explodes. Ryan is limp. He looks normal again, and his parents rush to him. Cordelia looks at the broken box and says, "Uh-oh." The family goes home. Angel, Cordelia, and Wesley talk through where the demon could have gone. I'm not clear how they know it's not in one of them. Earlier, they said it would jump to the nearest warm body, and Cordelia joked that Angel was safe. But somehow they are sure it's not in Cordelia or Wesley. Wesley sees the green goo in the elevator shaft, but Angel is sure the demon is far away. He says it will possess someone again. Wesley worries it'll try to repossess Ryan, but Angel tells him it can't do that now. It needed a lot of energy to escape. They figure out the demon must have taken on corporeal form so that it could absorb the nutrients it needs, which can be found in the sea salt caves. Wesley and Angel head out to find it. As they hunt through the caves, Wesley tells Angel that before they go further, since they'll be fighting side by side, he needs him to know that what the demon said. Angel cuts in and tells Wesley he knows Wesley's not planning to kill him. Quote, "But you're willing to, and that's good. Now come on." End quote. When they find the Ethros, it brags about how powerful and amazing it is. It possessed tens of thousands of humans before humans even knew how to speak the demon's name. Wesley taunts it, calls it a bully, saying it failed, it didn't get the boy's soul. And the demon says, "What soul?" This is a major twist late in the episode. We had what we thought was the climax. Now we thought, okay, we're leading up to the real climax. They're going to have the confrontation with the corporeal demon. And then we find out that perhaps Ryan is the danger. At home, Ryan complains that his sister's hot cocoa mix had 9 marshmallows and he only got 7. The mom, though, is so happy that he's okay, that she isn't really troubled by their squabbling. The scene cuts back to the demon, who tells them the most frightening thing in the world is nothing. He says Ryan was a flat void, no humanity, no emotion, and the demon never manifested until Angel drew it out with that powder. The demon from inside watched Ryan destroy everything around him, not for evil, just for no reason at all. Angel realizes the save me message came from the demon. The demon says he couldn't control Ryan, but he could whisper to him in his sleep. He got him to sleepwalk outside, wanting Ryan to step in front of the car. The demon just wanted to be done. He couldn't stand living in Ryan anymore, and he's ready for death. Wesley says they have to hurry. Ryan is with his family, and the demon says, yes, you do. Angel raises his weapon. It cuts as he swings down. We assume the demon did not resist. So that is how awful it was to be inside Ryan. Now we are approaching the real climax of the episode. The parents are in bed, as is Stephanie. Ryan sneaks out of his bed and steals matches from his parents' nightstand. Remember, we had that moment when Seth smoked earlier in the episode, so it is believable that Ryan can easily find matches. He locks them into their room. He takes the phone off the hook, slashes gasoline all over, especially in his sister's room, on her toys, her furniture. The parents have woken up and they're struggling to get out of the room. He not only locked it, though, he put one of those little triangular wooden wedges under it as well. So when Seth is slamming against the door, it is not opening. Ryan lights the match and drops it. Flames spring up. Stephanie wakes up and screams, seeing them. The flames are very high between her and the door, and her parents got out of their room, but they cannot get to her. Angel bursts in through Stephanie's window. He gets her out while Wesley has gotten in to the house through the front, and he gets the parents and Ryan out of the house. Now we're at the falling action where the episode ties up loose ends. A police car pulls up. Firefighters are finishing putting out the blaze. Kate gets out. Ryan is in the back seat. She tells Seth that Ryan will be taken into social services custody. He can see Ryan tomorrow after an evaluation. Angel thanks Kate for coming. She nods and drives off with Ryan. The two of them, Angel and Kate, obviously don't have the same close relationship they had before. She learned Angel was a vampire, but she came when he called her. Seth tells Angel he can't cover for Ryan anymore. Everything will come out, including what happened in Ohio. He wanted to protect Ryan, and he just wanted to hold his family together. Paige and Stephanie stand near the house. Angel looks at them and then at Seth and says, "I think you did." Seth turns, embraces his wife and daughter, and in a long shot from above, we see Angel walk to the car and join Wesley and Cordelia. And that is the end of the episode. This was a strong plot. There was a lot of tension early, both with the family and with Angel struggling with his grief over Doyle and his guilt that he was not able to save Doyle or stop him from sacrificing himself. There are significant plot turns and escalations, and the surprise ending, maybe not well, there was a surprise twist when we learn about Ryan, but also we had that false climax leading up to what we thought would be the real one and was not, and then moving on to the real climax where Angel is able to thwart Ryan's efforts. And we have that antagonist shift that we have seen in some other episodes. We think throughout the demon is the antagonist once we learn about the possession. And in some ways, he is, or it is pushing against Angel, but the demon wants to be expelled. So query whether the things the demon is saying to Wesley or to Angel, how much is the demon and how much is Ryan? Is Ryan able to tap into the demon's thoughts and taunt Wesley and Angel? Is Ryan resisting or is the demon resisting? Because if the demon wanted to be cast out, why not just let Angel and Wesley do the ritual? But maybe it can't help itself. Maybe it just has to respond that way, has to fight them. That would have been interesting to know. I do like, though, that the real antagonist is Ryan. So a lot of twists and escalations there. And a strong subplot where Angel works through his grief and guilt. And Wesley has something of a subplot, more of a character reveal or growth. So I'll get to that in the character section. First, what is this episode saying? There are a number of themes here, a very strong one about evil and good, demons and souls. Wesley says a father doesn't have to be possessed to terrorize his child. The nun sees Angel as evil. She questions why he would dare to come in the church, knowing what he is. He starts to say he's not what she thinks he is, but she swings her rosary with its cross toward him, and he starts smoking, and he says something like, okay, I am what you think, but I am trying to help a child. Suggesting, and we knew this already, Angel is still a vampire, but the nun's reaction suggested that despite the soul, there is a lot of evil there, and ultimately she wishes him well. She will pray for him, but only because the demon is worse, more dangerous, more evil, more powerful than Angel. Then we have the demon saying that the most frightening thing is nothing. The demon specifically says Ryan destroys everything not out of evil, just because there is nothing there, which is a comment on, is it worse to have nothing? And what does the lack of the soul mean in humans? In vampires, it means they fight and kill and drink human blood and don't care about the pain they cause, presumably, or they really enjoy it. We've seen that too. We saw that with Angelus. Yet in humans, Ryan does horrible things, but the demon seems to say that Ryan doesn't feel anything, that it's not that it brings him joy or he's evil. He just does these things because he's empty. So a human is empty inside. He says flat, a flat void. So a lot there about the nature of souls, about good, about evil, and whether there is something worse than outright evil. There are also nods toward being manipulating others. Angel makes that comment about Wesley doesn't even have sales resistance. He can be talked into anything. And then Cordelia goes to the magic store and the proprietor is doing all these things. He's complimenting her and she just does not have time for this. She came in, she knows what she needs. He doesn't need to sell her on anything, and yet he kind of can't stop. I love that we see Cordelia having that mental strength, but it's Wesley who knows the ritual. I feel like if Cordelia knew the ritual, she would do fine, especially because we saw her deal with her own insecurities in the episode Room with a View, where Maud did something much like what the demon does to Wesley and plays on her insecurities. Are we linking manipulation to being evil or being a demon? I don't think it's going that far. But the ways that humans can be manipulated, and that someone or something that understands human nature, or as with the demon, can look in even to the surface of your mind, can get to you, can manipulate you. And the demon almost kills Wesley because Wesley loses it. If you love Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the mix of ordinary life, ancient evil, and people who don't ask to be heroes, you might enjoy my Awakening supernatural thriller series. It begins with The Awakening, where an ordinary young woman stumbles into a hidden supernatural world that's been shaping human lives for centuries. She's not trained for this. She doesn't have a watcher, and once she's in, walking away isn't an option. Across 4 books, the series blends mystery, suspense, and the supernatural with a strong emotional core. These stories are about power, secrets, and the cost of survival when protecting the ones you love means making choices you can't take back. All 4 books are available in ebook, paperback, and audiobook. There's also an ebook box set if you want to binge the whole series. Find all the books on my author website, lisalilly.com. That's LISALILLY.com. There also are themes about kindness and emotional intelligence. Cordelia is so kind to Angel. I love that this is the case with Cordelia. She wasn't always the most emotionally in touch person, and here she really is. And this is juxtaposed with the idea of Ryan with no soul and no emotions. And Angel, in turn, offers understanding and kindness to Wesley. He reassures Wesley that it is okay, that Wesley is ready to kill him. It's not only okay, it is a good thing that Wesley needs to be ready to do that, and Wesley is right to be wary about Angel. And of course, there is the major theme of protection. Seth is trying to protect his family, keep it together. Angel is troubled that he could not, in the end, protect Doyle. And it seems that when he reassures Seth that he did keep his family together, despite that Seth, in the end, had to let Ryan go, could not do any more for Ryan, that Angel is reassuring himself that he did all that he could. It's a very different situation. This was Doyle's choice to sacrifice himself, to be a hero, whereas Ryan is doing evil, and we don't really know if he has a choice. That's another interesting question the episode raises. Did Angelus, when he lacked his soul, have a choice about how evil he was, about the horrible things he did? Does Ryan, not having a soul, does he have the option to behave differently than he does? All of that goes to a deeper theme and question of what makes us who we are. It is similar to the philosophical question of, if one believes in an all-powerful, perfect creator that created humans, why create some humans who do horrible things? It's not as if most of us walk around and say, oh gosh, I wish I could go kill a bunch of people, but I won't do it because it's wrong, or because I'll get arrested, or because the church says I'm going to hell. We don't want to do that. I don't have to hold myself back every day from doing that. And yet, here was someone who did this, who had that in him. And it raises the question, is it you have a soul, you don't have a soul? Is it how you are created? If there is a perfect creator, how could that be in the plan? And even if there's not, is there something just plain different in the brain of someone at that extreme of behavior? There are lots of other things that people can imagine that in certain circumstances they might do that might be criminal or might be, in the religious parlance, a sin. No one is perfect, but those at that extreme, how do we explain that? What is it? Are there people who don't have a conscience, who are driven by something else? So, very intriguing episode on all those counts. As to characters, I started talking about it with Cordelia, how kind she is, how much emotional intelligence she shows, while still being Cordelia. She isn't completely sensitive when the family walks in and she cheerily tells them sorry about the possession and everything. They're a little taken aback. Her line about, well, we'll play some cards. You won't even notice your son's pain. She is meaning to be comforting, but she still says things where, yeah, maybe it'd be better just not to say that. But she has grown so much in the course of Angel, the series. She certainly had growth on Buffy too, but we see a lot more here. And I do love her relationship with Angel. She is truly a friend to him, and he is someone who finds it difficult to have friends, to make friends. Angel reassuring Wesley fits with what he has been doing. Last episode, he hired Wesley and reassured him that he wasn't going to fire him because Wesley made a mistake and got captured momentarily. So this continues the deepening of Angel really caring about Wesley and encouraging Wesley. Wesley, I don't know if he has growth here. We learn more about him. We mostly saw the pompous side of Wesley and then the embarrassed side in Buffy when he had made a big mistake about trying to have Faith apprehended on his own. So he grew a bit there. But here we are learning what is behind some of his, maybe all of his insecurities, and why he needs so much of Angel's approval and fears always disappointing Angel, getting in trouble, getting fired, and how being fired from the council really hit him in a way that it might not someone else, where he took it very personally. Faith was his slayer. He feels responsibility for that, but it wasn't entirely Wesley's fault. But for Wesley to fail on the council, had to double down on everything, or to feel he failed, had to double down on all his fears and insecurities. So we know why he's in the state he's in. I do think there is some growth. Yes, he lost it with the demon. He let the demon get to him. But my sense is with almost anybody, that would work. It's not that Wesley was particularly weak, and he did a pretty good job overall. He resisted, he ignored it, and then the demon hit the right spot. So I feel that Wesley grew somewhat in that he was willing to do this exorcism. And even after he lost it and the demon tried to kill him, Wesley was going to go back in. So Wesley's desire to do the right thing, to jump in when no one else can, to do what needs to be done, even at risk of dying, shows a lot of courage, and he is much stronger than he was on Buffy in that regard. The father's character, to me, was a little overdone in the beginning. They wanted him to be ominous, but there was not that much for him to do beyond he locks his kids in. That's pretty ominous. I feel like they could have left it with that rather than having the actor play it to be so rude to Angel or so harsh with his wife. On the other hand, what we're seeing is the strain of years of dealing with this. I would have liked to have a better sense of that from the character and the dialogue than having to sort that out myself. I know they wanted the mislead that we think the father is the one who's possessed. It just felt a little clunky. And then when they switched, Paige felt exaggerated and overdone. In the beginning, she is definitely on the edge. She's very emotional. She's very lonely. She is seemingly afraid of her husband, but we find out afraid of what's been going on. And that felt very authentic to me. When it switched and now the father is all in with Angel's plan and she is struggling, she felt too over the top to me. I get that a mom or any parent, a mom, a dad, it would be so hard to have your child calling out to you. My trouble was she didn't feel enough like an individual developed character and more just felt like the generic mom who is distressed and who goes in to help her child despite all the warnings to the contrary. Likewise, I'll say the dad, he had a little more depth to the characterization, but both of them were a bit generic. Generic dad, generic mom. So I would have liked a little more sense of who they were as people, not only as parents. On to world building. This episode expands the Buffyverse a little, or goes into more depth over the question of souls, something that evolved in Buffy and yet remains something of an open question. How much of who a vampire is relates to who they were as humans. Is it the same person just without their soul, or is it just a demon that acts like the person? Spike suggests that the human is really still there. There is just this lack of soul. And the whole arc with a chip suggests that you could influence, even without the soul, the demon to move toward good, which suggests that there is still humanity there, something the judge told us about Spike and Drusilla, that they had humanity in them. On the other hand, the assault on Buffy in season 6 is meant to show us no matter how much Spike might have changed or his actions might have changed, he could not distinguish right from wrong, and that the soul would make a difference. In Angel, if anything, it's fuzzier because we have a lot of demons on the show, more than we did in Buffy, who seem to just be going along their lives and aren't posing a danger to anyone. And we don't know, do they have souls? Do they not have souls? This episode makes that even less clear because the demon is saying Ryan had no soul. There was nothingness, and that was horrible. One would think if the demon likewise had no soul, that would not be problematic unless it operates really differently to have no soul as a demon versus no soul as a human. So there are more questions about what the soul means. We're fairly clear in vampires. Angel at least tells us the difference having a soul makes, as does Spike's experience, but we just don't know for demons. Now, though, it seems that if a human has no soul, they are very dangerous and not only unable to distinguish right from wrong or stop themselves from doing terrible things, which we saw with Spike, but the lack of soul means they will actively do bad things over and over, just constantly. You get the feeling Ryan is just constantly about to set fire to everything, about to kill people because he has no soul. So that expands a little the idea of the soul and what it means. I think it is consistent with Buffy because we really didn't deal with that in Buffy, but it explores it deeper. Another expansion is that the Catholic Church in Angel knows about demons, knows about types of demons and how to exorcise them. We don't really get to that in Buffy. Buffy does not, that I can recall, someone can tell me if I'm wrong, seek out the help of a nun or a priest to deal with demons or vampires. She does go see that nun in one episode, which seems to be mainly played for a joke, in the Thanksgiving episode. I think it is, but she's going because there was an attack on someone at either the convent, I think it was a convent, but she's not going to say, hey, there's this demon I need to deal with. And Buffy does use crosses. The crosses repel the vampires and there's holy water, but we don't see a reverend or a priest or anyone traditionally religious fighting on her side or her getting advice from them. So it was interesting that they seek out a priest because they are doing something that is within that realm. The Catholic Church does have a rite of exorcism. I haven't looked lately to see what it says, but I'm pretty sure that is still part of the church's rubric. It's just that Buffy did not usually deal with something that traditional. So this is a more traditional story in a way, traditional horror story. Last, my rating of the episode. This was a hard one to rate because given that the episodes strike so many chords with me, those fears that I grew up with of possession and the devil and all of that, it really spooks me, so I do not want to re-watch it. And that is a big part of my measure. It's how much do I enjoy re-watching, and I did not want to re-watch it. But I feel like that is not a fair way to evaluate it, because usually whether I want to re-watch it has to do with, do I really like the story? How do I feel about the characters? Do the emotions land? And here, while I felt Paige and Seth were pretty generic, the character growth and the deepening relationships with Angel and Wesley and Cordelia are so powerful that the emotions really grab me. The effect of helping these people on Angel, how it helps him work through his guilt over Doyle, grabs me. And the episode, plot-wise, is well constructed and has escalations and has those twists that were set up pretty well. Though, as I mentioned, there is a little problem with why is the demon resisting if it wants to be expelled. It's a bit of a unfair mislead if there's no explanation for it. When you have a twist, it should surprise you as the viewer, but you should be able to look back and say, oh, yes, I see that. Here's where the groundwork was laid. And you shouldn't see things that contradict it, like, oh, but then why did the demon fight them? I do think that can be explained away fairly easily, and there probably just wasn't time to deal with it, or maybe no one thought about it. So that only troubles me a little. It didn't interfere with me enjoying the twist. And I always enjoy episodes that grapple with some of those philosophical questions without having a big discussion about it. The characters are not sitting around talking about what a soul means or doesn't mean. It is inherent in the story, and I always find that type of episode really intriguing. Considering all that and comparing it to where I put other episodes, I've Got You Under My Skin an 8. That is it for this episode of the podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and a special thank you to patrons who support the podcast. Remember, you can find additional bonus content, much of it about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, almost all of it, on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Lisa M. Lilly, Lisa, M as in Marie, Lilly, and look for the collections tab and find the bonus collection. And if you're not a patron yet, you can go there and sign up and get access to all those bonuses, as well as an early release of every regular episode. Finally, come back next time for Season 1, Episode 14, The Prodigal, where Angel is haunted by visions from his past, and in the present, he investigates Kate's father, potentially changing her life forever. You can find back episodes of Buffy and the Art of Story, as well as the Buffy and the Art of Story books and all my fiction at lisalilly.com. To support the podcast, hear extra bonus content, and get each regular episode a few days early, join the Patreon community at patreon.com/Lisa M. Lilly. That's Lisa, M as in Marie, Lilly. Music for this episode was written and performed by Robert Newcastle. Buffy and the Art of Story is a production of Spiny Woman, LLC. Copyright 2025. All rights reserved.